Lawrence Britt's one of the top wide receivers in 2027. This is a guy that I wanted to get the sophomore film up on my channel this offseason. Just never got around to it, and I really should have, because I do think this is going to be one of the premier talents in 2027. So this is kind of an interesting evaluation, and we run into this all the time, right, where high schools will use these kids different than we think they're going to be used at the next level. We're going to see Lawrence Britt on a lot of in the backfield, a lot on defense sometimes. They're going to use a lot of these screens. I think he has the capacity to be a gadget player at the next level. This dude is going to be such a good wide receiver. You know, we see the flashes of him being a good wide receiver. And so what's the difference between him being a gadget, him being a wide receiver? When we talk about a kid being a good wide receiver, we feel good about the route running. We feel about this kid's ability to separate at the next level. You know, not just be a good athlete, not just be dynamic with the ball in his hands. We definitely have that with Lawrence Britt, but I want to place an emphasis on Lawrence Britt's ability to separate, and we're not going to see that a lot in the high school film just because of the way that he's used, but I don't think we're going to have any issues with him separating at the next level. So why do I say that? When he has the ball in his hands, he's just very, very elusive in the open field, and he's got a really good change of direction ability. He's not one of those kids where we're going to be talking about suddenness, you know, where it kind of looks like aggressive with the ball in his hands to change of direction. It's just all so smooth, and we're not going to see it that often as him as a route runner just because of the offense that he's playing and, you know, the way that they're using him in high school. But I do think that at the next level, when we're talking about him turning into an actual wide receiver, he certainly has the athletic ability to do it. If you would have watched my channel a year ago today, I used to place such an emphasis on, you know, scouting and watching athletes. I didn't really care as much about the football skills just because I kind of operate under the philosophy that it's easier to turn an athlete into a football player than it is a football player into an athlete. And you need to be both at the next level. It's very hard to get away with being a good football player, not a good athlete at the next level. And I think we see both of that with Lawrence Britt. It's just going to be about more him not playing that wide receiver position as much in high school. But, you know, when we do see him split out, like, you can see the ball skills. Look at this right here. You know, this is so easy for him. I even want to place an emphasis on this route. You know, just take a look at how sudden it is at the top of the route there. We're going to see it again in a little bit. So this is one of the top guys for sure, 2027. You might see the other wide receivers, you know, Keshawn Bowman, Monshawn Sales. You're going to see him split out a lot more and play that actual wide receiver position more just because of the offenses they're in high school. But, you know, Lawrence Britt's one of the guys that kind of has a unique frame compared to the top guys we watched in 2027 at 6 foot. The other guys are a bit, you know, closer to 5'10", but real twitched up, or closer to 6'5", and just, you know, massive physical presence. Lawrence Britt's kind of in the middle, and I do think that he's going to be a really good player at the next level. We're going to see some really nice athletic stuff in a little bit here. But you see with the ball in his hands how easy the change of direction ability is, the explosiveness, the long speed. You know, I try to get away from talking about that stuff as much on the channel just because people want to hear about the football, but at the end of the day, you know, you got to be one of the top athletes to play at the next level for sure. And I definitely think we see that with Lawrence Britt. Like I said, it just might not be in the way that we're going to see him at the next level. But there is one play I do want to make sure we include before we get done here. I don't know if that makes any sense, you know, but we definitely are seeing him a lot at running back, so I kind of have to defend. Why is this kid a wide receiver when he's playing a lot of running back, when he's not really running routes as much as these other guys in high school? And I definitely think, like, you see him with the ball in his hands, you just see how sudden it is, or just how easy the change of direction is. And then when he is running routes, it might not be quite to the same volume, but there's nothing when he is running routes to kind of make you not feel good about him doing that at the next level. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I do want to make sure we include this one play. This move right here that he has with the ball in his hands might be one of my favorite that I've seen from any kid in 2027. Look at this. It's just a little easy step back. You know, I talked about it was main chroma last year. It almost looked like we were watching a basketball player play football. This looks more like a crossover than it does a juke. Look how easy this is. So I really do think this kid's going to be a good route runner. I think he's a good route runner now. You know, I'm just saying we don't have as much volume as we do other kids. But that was Lawrence Britt. You guys let me know what you think about him. Thanks for watching.